Year and a half, roughly.
Year and a half.
So in your...
Happy to come.
I think we should get that and get it public before the election. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I'm just struck by the irony, the fact that the very email that they went after Mr. Allen about was on this subject, and we're not going to get an answer to it until after the election, potentially after the inauguration. I find the irony astounding. And it's not Mr. Horowitz's fault. It's the folks of the Justice Department who are taking their time with this report. I appreciate the gentleman's question. Now yield to the gentleman from New York or California?
John, you want
California.
me to go?
New York, excuse me. I'll do whatever Ms. Plaskett says. Okay, New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here we are again for another hearing about the same topic. And I want to say I appreciate the concerns about how the FBI addresses and investigates whistleblowers or retaliates against whistleblowers. And we've had a number of hearings on this in this committee. And Mr. Horowitz, I'm glad you are looking into it. That is your job, and that's what you should do. But let's be real. This is the weaponization of the federal government subcommittee. Whistleblower retaliation is peanuts compared to a future president using the power of his office to imprison his political adversaries simply because they oppose him. That is the ultimate weaponization of the federal government. And we don't have to question whether or not Donald Trump will do this in the future because we know how this story plays out. We've seen it, and he's done it in the past. I want to introduce an article from last Sunday's New York Times entitled, "As President Trump demanded investigations of foes, he often got them. He has threatened to target his perceived enemies if elected again. A look at his time in the White House shows how readily he could do so." Let's just go through some of the things that Donald Trump did when he was president the first time. James Comey testified that Trump asked him for a pledge of loyalty and then requested that Comey drop the investigation of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Comey refused. Trump fired him. Trump also fired Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe because he oversaw an investigation that Donald Trump didn't like, just days before McCabe would have earned his full retirement pension. Trump then demanded that the IRS investigate Comey and McCabe, among others. Well, that's not all. At Trump's direction, the Justice Department dropped its case against former National Security Advisor Flynn, who had pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. Mr. Kirshner, in your 30 years of experience, are you aware of any other situation where the Department of Justice withdrew a case after someone, a defendant, had admitted to the conduct under oath in court?
I am not.
Let's move on. Donald Trump pressured overtly the DOJ to reverse its sentencing recommendation for Roger Stone. After Stone threatened to cooperate against Donald Trump, Trump granted him clemency. John Durham wasted millions of dollars on a baseless and fruitless investigation into the origins of the Russia investigation because Donald Trump demanded it. And it got so bad that Mr. Durham's number 2 resigned in protest to Durham's plan, pressured by Bill Barr and Donald Trump, to publish an interim report on the investigation shortly before the 2020 election in gross violation of DOJ policies. That's not all. Trump tried to install Jeffrey Clark as Attorney General because he acknowledged to the president that he would do his bidding and fraudulently try to help him overturn the election. But this is the one that really gets to the nub of this. And Mr. Levitt, we're talking about First Amendment, infringement on First Amendment rights that you are alleging has happened to these FBI agents. You would agree, would you not, that writing a book is protected speech under the First Amendment?
Sure.
So let me just give you a hypothetical scenario. Somebody pleads guilty to a crime. He's sentenced and designated to serve his sentence at home. He is asked by the Department of Justice to sign an agreement saying that he would not write a book. He refuses to do that. As a result of his refusal, the Department of Justice throws him back into jail in solitary confinement. Is that, in your mind, the weaponization of the Department of Justice to infringe upon First Amendment rights?
I'm not a First Amendment lawyer, Mr. Goldman.
Well, you said this is all about a First Amendment infringement.
Well, and
why
with
are you
reference to-
testifying about that if you're not an expert? The answer, because
federal
my time is running
employees
out. Excuse me. The
have the
answer,
right to
because my
talk about
time
this.
is running out, is that actually happened by Donald Trump to Michael Cohen. A judge intervened immediately, reversed the decision because it's a gross violation of the First Amendment. It is a gross abuse of power of the Department of Justice, and Mr. Cohen was let out. But this is who now has complete immunity to do this as much as he wants without the guardrails of Don McGahn or John Kelly to stop him from doing it. This is going to be the danger of the weaponization of the federal government. I yield back.